Welcome to our next Leading in the Context of COVID-19 Bite Size. This time we're going to focus on the circle of influence. In her article for the King's Fund on the 23rd of April 2020, Jo Mabin described some of the things that she'd lost as a result of the arrival of COVID-19. She included the loss of her usual routines, in the flesh laughing with colleagues, meaningful work projects, and seeing the joy of her mother playing with her grandchildren. Whilst we're all likely to have lost something, those things will be different for each of us and will vary greatly in their impact and significance. One loss that we all share is the loss or the perceived loss of control. As individuals, communities, or an entire population, we've become aware of the loss of our control over our health, our finances, and our daily activities. As human beings, we very often worry about the things that are outside of our control. Worry and anxiety are tiring and stressful, even more so if we feel there's nothing we can do about it. This reminds me of the quote from the Greek philosopher Epictetus that we shared with you as part of our resilience bite size. It's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it that matters. The approach that I'm going to share with you today is designed to support you in getting the most from the energy, effort and skills you invest by focusing your energy where you have the most influence, thereby supporting your mindset to be proactive rather than reactive, and so enable you where possible to take more control. Epictetus refers to this level of control when he says, "The chief task in life is simply this, to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself, which are externals not under my control, and which have to do with the choices that I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself to the choices that are my own." Our response to the circumstances, people and events in our lives has a much larger impact on the quality of our lives than the events themselves. Response isn't just about the action we take. Our beliefs about the events and circumstances in our lives and the way we talk to ourselves and each other about them are part of our response, and we have control over those as well. In his classic book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey introduced a tool that resonated with me and that I use regularly when I'm experiencing anxiety, especially when I'm anxious about things that I initially perceive as out of my control. Covey says that in every situation can be divided into 3 circles. The first is our circle of concern, which includes factors we have a level of discomfort, worry or frustration about. It can include a whole variety of things ranging from where did I leave my glasses to am I homeschooling my children effectively? Did I remember to set up the recording of Corrie to will I be redeployed? Or does my bum look big in this? To global warming and everything in between. It's useful to understand that circles shrink or expand depending on where we put our focus and effort, and that our circle of concern is a combined one, i.e. it will contain elements from both our personal lives and our work lives which are likely to impact each other. Notice too what happens when we think of any of the elements in our circle of concern. They drag our attention, they distract us from what we're doing or are supposed to be doing, they create indecision and inertia, and it's likely they may cause us to experience some level of anxiety and as a result drain our energy. In our bite size on the psychological transition curve, we describe this in terms of levels of thinking and feeling. In normal circumstances, when we're in a mindful state, our levels of thinking and feeling or emotion are likely to be in balance. When we focus on things that are in our circle of concern, our levels of emotion are likely to increase, reducing our thinking capacity and compromising our ability to be objective or make rational and reasoned decisions. What we want to do to positively influence our anxiety levels then is move as many of the things from our circle of concern to one of the other 2 circles. The next one of which is the circle of control. This represents things that are 100% within our power. Notice that when things are in this circle, our levels of thinking and feeling remain balanced and we retain or reinforce our mindful state. This circle includes immediate tasks that we can take action on straight away, and this action generates energy and supports us in avoiding inertia. Between our circles of concern and control lies our circle of influence. This contains things that we have some level of influence over. This is where we're likely to have the greatest opportunity to make choices that positively impact our anxiety levels, as it encompasses those concerns over which we can choose to exert influence. Now, in the context of COVID-19, it may feel like there are less opportunities to exert influence at the moment because of the much more command and control leadership style we're experiencing both nationally, so for example lockdown, and within NCH&C. Having said that, by looking for and focusing on the things that we can do, we expand our circle of influence. As a result, we're more likely to have a positive impact on those around us, thus shrinking our, and probably their, circle of concern. Now, we have a number of skills and actions that we already can take to represent our ability to influence this. These include having conversations, asking questions, investigating or finding out more, sharing knowledge and information, giving feedback, choosing what to pay attention to, building and managing relationships, and deciding what to share. So let's have a look at an example of a circles of concern and control in direct relation to COVID-19. So things that may be in our own circle of concern or the circle of concern of those around us are going to include things like social media feeds, the economy, the news, lockdown, other people's behaviour, COVID-19, when schools reopen, political issues, and availability of PPE. So in terms of our circles of influence or control, or circles of influence and control for others around us, they will include things like our attitudes, our behaviours, our frequency of listening to the news, social media posting, who we surround ourselves with, our TV viewing habits, our reading habits, our self-care routines, our attention, and our purchasing habits. So these are examples of general elements that would sit in these circles, and they're likely to be relevant to everybody. As a leader, there will be other ones more specific to your role, so let's look at some of those now. So within your circle of concern as a leader might be the discharge levels from the NNN, the COVID-19 vaccine, if and when they're going to create one, availability of PPE, the quantity and pace of change that you're experiencing, behaviour of patient or family members and maybe members of your team, changing messages, the distance from your team because of lockdown, and a much more directive or command and control style of leadership. So focusing on the things that you can control or influence then, these might include things like your choice of communication methods, so whether you choose to communicate face-to-face or across Microsoft Teams, on the telephone or on WhatsApp, whatever's most relevant to your team. How regularly you cascade key information. So ideally that would be daily. That might not be possible, so as often as you possibly can within that, so your team understand the context of what's going on for them. Asking questions when things are not clear or information seems missing, you can fill the gaps. Regular check-ins with your team to support their health and well-being. And as part of that, modelling or role modelling good health and well-being behaviour and encouraging it in others. Giving positive feedback and sharing positive news. When we focus on our circle of concern, we allow what's in it to control us. When we focus on our circle of influence, we are the ones in charge. It's about the choices that we and those around us make and where we put our attention. Those choices and where we put our attention are about changing our perspective on what we believe. Whilst this change of perspective may sound simple, because it is, it's just about making a different decision, that doesn't mean it's easy to do. Having said that, just because something isn't easy doesn't mean it's not worth doing. As a leader, you're likely to be more influential and increase the positive impact on those around you because they're likely to recognize that you're doing it's not easy and you're still doing it anyway. You're a role model, and the behavior you expect from others, or as Mohandas Gandhi says, you are being the change you want to see in the world. Now, the choices and behaviours we deploy will support us and those around us to move factors from our circle of concern to our circles of influence or control. This handout is available on the intranet about how to apply the circle of influence either individually or in a team setting. It's a simple 3-step process followed by a reflection step. It's one of a number of tools that the James Paget University Hospital shared with us that comes from their bite-sized leadership toolkit. It was created in partnership with a local learning and development consultancy called Connect, who've also worked with NCH&C in the past in relation to talent management and other organisational development projects. You can access a copy of this handout along with copies of the other tools that they shared on the Leading in the Context of COVID-19 intranet page by typing COVID-19 into the search bar. So the takeaway for me is about successful implementation of the circle of influence is fundamentally boiling down to our ability and willingness to differentiate between control and influence. When we identify something that's in our circle of concern, so something like lockdown or other people's behaviour, and realise that these things are out of our control, we can feel despondent and give up. Recognise, though, that giving up leaves them in our circle of concern where they'll still cost us time, energy and emotion which we could be using to sustain ourselves and others. When we identify the elements that we can influence, so how and when we communicate to others, when and how we cascade key information so those around us fully understand the context of decisions and actions, etc., we feel better and it seems to release more energy to influence further. Whilst no one individual can change the situation by themselves, each of us acting appropriately and collectively can make a big difference. On the rare occasion when I recognise I have no opportunity to control or influence a situation, so I've noticed that no amount of me yelling at the television or cursing the origin of COVID-19 is going to make it go away, to avoid wasting my precious resources, so my time, my energy, my attention, my emotion on something that won't change, I choose to let it go. On the face of it, this can seem like I'm giving up or giving in, when in reality, I'm putting it firmly in my circle of control, because I'm taking control over my response. This quote beautifully sums up the difference between influence and control. Control is our ability to make something happen. Influence is our ability to affect someone else's thinking. As leaders, the majority of our time is spent in relationships with others, and as part of these relationships, we'll want to leverage both our control of ourselves and our influence of others' thinking, and support those around us to do the same. In addition to this bite size, there are a range of other sources of support for you at this time. So they will include the Real Bite Size intranet page, which has videos and handouts on it, the Health and Wellbeing intranet page and the weekly briefings, the Leading in the Context of COVID-19 intranet page, which I've mentioned, where you'll find this bite size along with all of the previous ones, plus a range of other resources that we think might be useful to you. There's the RNHS People Wellbeing Support, and I'll leave you with the details of that on the last slide. And we also have a Twitter account, so if you don't follow us already, please do it at NCHC_leaders. We'd love to hear about your experiences of COVID-19, the successes you're having as leaders, or anything else you'd like us to generate in terms of support. Along similar lines then, if you're not on Twitter and you want to contact us in another way, please do so by email via HR Service Support, and if you could title your email Bite Size, we'll be able to find it more quickly. Thanks for your attention, and we look forward to sharing another Bite Size with you soon.